To start our pre-trip, we walk up, we're going to look for 4 fluids up under the truck: power steering fluid, oil, fuel, and coolant. Make sure my license tag's current and up to date. I come up, look at my lights, my headlights, my turn signal marker lights, my clearance lights that are on the corner, my ID lights that are in the middle. Headlights should be clear in color, the rest are amber in color. Make sure they're not all cracked, broken, missing, or faded. Clear! Now I come around to this side. First thing I'm going to do is start at the top of the engine, my coolant. Check my coolant level, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing or any leaks. I'll follow my hoses down, make sure there's no cuts, cracks, or leaks. Follow this hose all the way down to my water pump that's located down in here. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not loose or missing, no leaks. It is gear driven. Here's my air compressor. Make sure it is properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing, no signs of audible leaks, and it is gear driven. To the other side. On this side, as I come around, I'm going to start at the top of the engine, work my way down. The alternator, make sure it is properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing, no loose or bare wires. Check my belt. Make sure. On this side, as I come around, I'm going to start at the top of the engine, work my way down. The alternator, make sure it is properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing, no loose or bare wires. Check my belt. Make sure there's no cuts, cracks, or frays in it, no more than a 1/2 inch of play, pushing to the inside. Then I'm going to go ahead and check my oil level, pull it out. If it is low, I'll add 1 gallon into oil fill tube. Then I come to my power steering reservoir. Check my level. Then I make sure this is properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing, no signs of leaks. Come here to my steering system. Check my steering mechanism or steering shaft. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, no bends, damage, or warps. Come here to my gearbox. Make sure the gearbox is properly mounted and secured, nothing loose or missing, no signs of leaks or any miss or loosened bolts. Follow my hoses all the way in to my power steering pump, which is located under here. Follow that hose down. See how that hose goes in? Yep. Alright, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, nothing loose or missing. No signs of leaks. Coming down from the bottom is the pitman arm. So I check the pitman arm, the drag link, and all the way down here is the tie rod. All the way down there. Make sure they're all properly mounted and secured, nothing loose or missing. No signs of damage, cuts, bends. Checking all 3 castle nuts. One here, the other one is located way down here to the inside. There's the 3rd castle nut, way down there. Alright, make sure all the Carter keys are in place. Now that I've covered my steering, I'm going to go to my suspension. Down here is my leaf spring mount. Here's my U-bolts. And the aft mount, which is back here. Make sure they're all properly mounted and secured. Nothing loose or missing. I'm not worried about what's on it. We're inspecting it.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
I was just making sure if it was...
They're all properly mounted and secured. Nothing's loose or missing. Not cracked or damaged. Here's my shock absorber. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured. No signs of dents or damage. Alright. Now I've done all my suspension, so I'm going to go to my brake system. Here's my hose. Make sure there's no cuts, cracks, or leaks to my brake chamber. Properly mounted and secured, no dents, no damage, no cracks. To my slack adjuster, make sure it's not sitting at more than a 90-degree angle, no more than 1 inch of free play. Okay, as we go to the inside, we're looking for the drums. Make sure they're not cracked, there's no leaks, no damage to the inside of the drums, and making sure that the pads are not worn dangerously thin. We come out to our tire. 3 things we need to hear for every tire is TOP. You need to hear the tread depth. Make sure there's no less than 4/32 of tread depth in all major grooves. Then the overall condition, any abrasions, bumps, cuts, or damage. Then we come down to our tire pressure. So we check our valve stem, and we're checking the tire pressure. Inner and outer rims. Make sure there's no cracks, unauthorized welds, or any damage. Lug nuts. Make sure they're all properly mounted and secure. There is no signs of rust, which would indicate looseness. My hub seal. Check all the bolts around the hub seal. Make sure they are all there, not cracked, broken, missing, or faded. Check the oil level inside the hub seal. Then we're going to check our mud flap or our splash guard. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, nothing's loose or missing. Now I'll go ahead and close the hood. Clear? As I come over here, I'm going to check my mirror mount. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not loose or missing. Hold the weight of the mirror. Looking at my doors, making sure there's no damage, that the latch works inside and out, that the hinges can support the weight of the door. While I'm here, I can go ahead, 3 points of contact, check my step, make sure they can support my weight, make sure they're properly mounted and secured. The battery box, which is located up under here, make sure that it's properly mounted and secured, no loose or missing bolts, no loose or bare wires, no signs of corrosion or leaks. Then check my fire extinguisher, make sure it's properly rated at 10 ABC or 10 BC. It is in the green, it is properly mounted, it's an ABC. So I'll go ahead and close this. Checking my side turn signal and side marker light, make sure it's not cracked, broken, missing, or faded, it's amber in color. Come here to my emergency equipment. 3 reflector triangles, red in color. Extra fuses or circuit breakers, depending on what tractor I need. Okay? Now as I come down here to my fuel tank, first thing I always look for in my fuel tank is no leaks. Make sure there's no leaks on the fuel tank. Then I'm looking to make sure that all these straps have rubber in between them. That way there's no metal to metal contact. I'll take the lid off, the cap, make sure that I do have a rubber seal on the inside. Now I'll go ahead, both hands up on the handle. I will climb up my steps, make sure they can support my weight and they're properly mounted and secured. As I come over to my catwalk, make sure that the catwalk is properly mounted and secured to support my weight. I'll check my frame. Make sure that the frame, there's no illegal welds, no warps, no damage, no cracks. My drive shaft located in the center. I'll make sure that it does not have any bows or damage or warps. Make sure all the universal joints and everything's in place. Now I'm going to start at the back of my tractor. Look at my reflectors, make sure they're clean in color. Alright, any damage on the back of the cab, come down to my lights, make sure they are not cracked, broken, missing, or faded. These are my work service lights here at the back. Now I'm going to check the support beams and the mounts for the exhaust. I'm going to check the left side of the exhaust for any holes, any damage, any soot, which would indicate leaks. Come here to my hoses for my emergency service. Make sure there's no cuts, cracks, or leaks inside the lines. Then I'll check out my electrical line, make sure there's no cuts or bare wire. Now I look at the fittings down here at the back of the tractor, make sure the seals are good, no cuts, cracks, or leaks, and I'll also pull out the electrical line to look at the 7 prongs, make sure there's no dirt or water inside the prongs, and all 7 prongs are there. Work my way back here to the side. I'll actually pull out my glad hand, look on the inside of it, make sure it's free of dirt, water, and oil. Then I reattach it, make sure that the grommets are okay. Put it in a 90-degree angle, wedge it down till they're flush. I also pull this out and check it just like I did the one before. Now when I'm up here, I look at my header board, make sure there's no holes, no damages, no cracks, no bends. I look at my clearance lights up top, make sure they're amber in color, not cracked, broken, missing, or faded. Now I'll go ahead and step down. Use 3 points of contact, both hands on the handle. Come down here, I'm going to inspect these axles just like I inspected the steer axles. So now all I need to do is name the parts and pieces. So I'm going to check my leaf spring mounts, my leaf springs, my U-bolts. There's the U-bolts there. I can also see my airbag from here. Make sure it is not dry rotted, cut, or leaking. I can also see my shock absorber as I sit from this point right here. I needed to describe the airbag and the airbag mounts because this is the first time I get to see them. So now that I've covered my suspension, I'm going to go to my brakes. Here's my brake chamber located here. Checking my brake hoses, which are located here. Alright, on the back of the chamber is my slack adjuster. To the inside of the rim is my drums and pads. Or shoes, whichever one you want to call them. Alright. Now, I'm going to check my inside and outside rims, just like I did before. I'm going to check my lug nuts on the outside, just like I did before. I'm going to check my hub seal cover. Now I'm going to go into my tire. Make sure there's no less than 2/32 of tread depth. Any abrasions, bumps, cuts, damage, or even wear. I'm going to look down here and check my valve stem. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured. And it's not leaking. I'm going to check my tire pressure. So now I'm going to repeat everything for this axle. Checking my spring mounts, my leaf spring, my U-bolts, my shock absorber, my airbag. I'm also going to go to my brake system, my hoses, my chamber, my slack adjuster, my drum, and the inside on the pads or shoes. Now I'm going to inspect my inside and outside rim, lug nuts, hub seal cover, valve stem. I'm going to check my tire pressure. I'm going to come out here and check my tread depth, no less than 2/30 seconds. Looking for any abrasions, bumps, cuts, damage, or even wear. Come down here to the fifth wheel. As I look at the fifth wheel, I'm checking out the glide plate here. I'm also looking at the apron, make sure there's no cracks or damage or any kind of bows in the apron, which is the bottom part of the trailer. And here's the glide plate. I'm looking at my mounting pin right here, just holding my clevis pin in place. Make sure the Carter key's in place. Down here is my platform, my horizontal and vertical nuts. Make sure they're all in place, and make sure that the locking pins have it locked in place and they're not seized or corroded. Now as I move to the back here, check my mud flap and make sure it is properly mounted and secured, not dry rotted or dragging. I'm also going to look up under here to the fifth wheel to make sure on the inside that I can see that the locking jaws are wrapped around the kingpin and it is secure. Now I move down here to my lights, making sure that they are red in color, not cracked, broken, missed, or faded. It's my brake lights and turn signal lights. I also see a reverse light and a tag light to make sure they're clear in color, not cracked, broken, missed, or faded. Since I'm already standing in front of the landing gear, I'm going to go ahead and check my ankle braces in my feet, make sure they are properly mounted and secured. Make sure that my handle is in the proper and stowed position. Now I look to the side of my trailer. I'm looking for any bows, cuts, damages on the side of the trailer. Then I look down here to the frame of the trailer. Two totally different things. Now I'm checking the frame for any warps, bends, cracks, unauthorized welds. Now I come down. Looking down the side of the trailer, I don't see any clearance lights at the top. I do see a turn signal marker light down here. It is amber in color, not cracked, broken, missing, or faded. Now I also check the reflective tape down the side to make sure it is clean. Alright, now as I come back here to the trailer axles, I'm going to inspect them just like I did the ones before. But these are a little different. As I look up under here, I can see that there's my shock absorber and my airbag. And when I look at it, I see that there is no leaf spring. Okay? So now I will inspect my shock absorber and my airbag, and now I'm going to move to my brake system. There's the chamber, the hose, the slack adjuster, and the drums that are located to the inside of the rim. I also check my shoes or pads, whichever one you want to call them. Now that I've checked my brakes and my suspension, I'll go ahead and go to my tire. No less than 2/30 seconds of tread depth, abrasions, bumps, cuts, damage, even wear. I'm also going to check the tire pressure. Looking to the inside of the rim and outside rim, looking at lug nuts and the hub seal. I'll also repeat everything for this axle. Shock absorber, I'll look at the fifth wheel release handle to make sure that it is in the in and lock position, which is right here, and it is. Now I'll come to the passenger side of my exhaust. Look for any cuts or damage or any kind of cracks or soot, which would indicate looseness. And then I look to the underside of my cab for the flex pipe or the rest of the exhaust. Make sure there's no leaks. This concludes the outside portion of the pre-trip.